Hi everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us online. I am Professor Deborah Shepherd. I'm from the Department of Economics at Stellenbosch University. Today, what I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about is the degree in economic sciences, why it might be the right choice for you, and what paths it could open up for you. So what does it mean to study a BCom in economic sciences? Essentially, I would say it means learning how to think about the world, but not just thinking about the world, but also thinking about how to change it. What is economic sciences? I think a really interesting place to start is with what isn't it? So there are some common misconceptions about what economic sciences is. When people hear the word economics, they often think immediately of money, banks, or the stock market. True story, I came to Stellenbosch University thinking I was going to be a stockbroker. Another common misconception is that it's only about business. And another is that economists all end up working in the same kinds of jobs. But in reality, economics is a very flexible degree that opens doors into many, many different jobs. So if I had to choose a very simple definition of economic sciences, it's about understanding how people make choices, how markets and institutions shape those choices, and how data and policy can improve lives. So yes, finance and markets do come into that, but it's so much broader than that. It's really about trying to make sense of complex social and economic problems. We study people, we study systems, and we use evidence to understand what's working, what's not working, and what could work better. So you might be surprised then to learn that economists ask questions like, how does income affect education outcomes? How does employment status affect health? Is health even important for future employment? How important is gender for future employment? How would increasing the minimum wage affect growth? How can policy reduce poverty and inequality? You can see how these are all very relevant to South Africa. So I would say if you enjoy asking big why and what if questions about the world around you, and if you find yourself wondering why societies look the way they do or why we might design better systems, I would say you're already thinking like an economist, and so you are in the right place. John Maynard Keynes, who is a really famous economist from the early 20th century, had this to say about what a good economist is. A good economist must be a mathematician, a historian, a statesman, a philosopher. In some degree, they must understand symbols and speak in words. They must contemplate the particular in terms of the general and touch abstract and concrete in the same flight of thought. What I think you should take away from that quote is that a good economist draws a little bit from many disciplines. So when you're choosing to study economic sciences, you're not choosing a single job. You're choosing a way of thinking that opens many possible paths. Economics is one of the most flexible degrees you can study. It gives you analytical and quantitative skills that are valuable in many different sectors, from data science to finance to policy making to research. It is extremely broad. A BCom in economic sciences is what they call a general degree within the EMS faculty, but it has several focal areas, which include econometrics, economic and management consultation, the financial sector, and transport economics. What do we mean by a focal area? So a focal area isn't a separate degree, so you shouldn't think of it that way. What a focal area is a recommended pathway. Think of it as a way of shaping your studies around certain types of problems and methods, but you're still going to graduate with the same economic sciences degree. Why this is important to recognize is because it means you do not need to know at the beginning. Your first year is not about locking yourself into a narrow degree. It's about building the foundations in economics, mathematics, and other related commerce subjects, and discovering what kinds of problems and approaches interest you. So if we had to compare the general economic sciences degree with the 4 focal areas, what you should notice immediately is that there are common first-year subjects to all types of economic science programs. That means that the economic sciences program, whichever one you choose, gives you a shared base. It's only from second and third year that you begin to gradually specialize into a particular track. And this design is intentional because what it means is it keeps your options open while you discover what you enjoy and where your strengths lie. So if you had to start off in an econometrics focal area and after a year or two realize, you know what, I really prefer financial management or investment management, you can very easily pivot into economic and management consultation as a focal area. If you look at the degree programs as well, what you'll notice is that there are very big differences in terms of electives. So if you go for econometrics or the financial sector, there are no electives at first year level. Essentially, all your modules are compulsory. So this is also something to think about when you choose your degree. Do you want to be locked into something where the choices are made for you? Or do you maybe want to keep things a little bit open and flexible, knowing that it will always be possible to move into something more focused later? Within economics, the further you go with your studies, the more open it becomes. So irrespective of which undergraduate program you end up studying, whether it's econometrics or financial sector or transport economics, you will still get exposure to different disciplines in economics. You will move into teaching around health, education, labor, public, trade, history even, environmental economics. This is a very, very broad area of, this is a really, really broad area of interest. And the reason why economics caters to so many interests is because essentially, it is about social questions. And around those social questions come data and modeling. So you don't have to think of yourself as someone working in markets and finance. You can be someone working in social areas of research, such as education and health as well. This is one of the strengths of degree. It allows you to combine technical skills with questions that you care about. Now, you might have noticed when I showed you the 5 different programs that there's a lot of math and stats. And in fact, you can't avoid maths and stats when you study economic sciences. These are foundational. Often when people hear about maths and stats, it becomes a source of anxiety. What I'd like you to know is that, yes, all pathways use mathematics and statistics, but they use them in different ways and at different intensities. Which means that if you know you're somebody who doesn't quite enjoy maths, but you accept that, well, you know, in order to do the degree I like, I'm going to have to expose myself to a little bit of maths and stats, then choose the program that is going to be perhaps less intense on the mathematics side. So to see how mathematics comes into whether or not you choose to apply for economic sciences or not, you will see that there are minimum admission requirements for a BCom in economic sciences. So there is a language requirement, and this is applicable to all degree programs at Stellenbosch University. But the subject that becomes more important when you are choosing to select into economic sciences is mathematics. So all programs in economic sciences, except for econometrics and the financial sector, at a minimum require a matric average of 65% and a mathematics mark of at least 60%. If you are someone who sees themselves moving into an econometrics or a financial sector track, then your mathematics mark needs to be at least 70%. Something that is quite important to remember, and I think that this is something that will be indicated to you in the rest of the information that you read during this online open day, is that meeting the minimum requirements doesn't guarantee admission. So sometimes it is best to aim for the selection criteria. So there is a lot of demand and a lack of capacity in terms of meeting that demand. So if you aim for the selection criteria, it improves your chances of getting into your first degree of choice. So the selection criteria for a BCom in economic sciences is slightly higher in terms of the matric average and your mathematics requirements. So your matric average needs to be at least 70%. For a BCom economic science that is not econometrics or financial sector focused, that maths mark must be 63% or higher. But if you want to go econometrics and financial sector, it needs to then be 73%. Always consult the faculty website for the most up-to-date information. Our department at Stellenbosch University has passionate, research-active lecturers who care about teaching. We offer strong quantitative training and excellent preparation for postgraduate study. This department is proud of our reputation as one of the leading economics departments in the country, but just as importantly, we're proud of the students that we develop. So who would thrive in an economics degree? I would say that if you are someone who is curious about people and society, someone who enjoys problem solving, someone who is comfortable with numbers, or at least willing to learn about numbers, and someone who wants to make a difference, this is a degree for you. But no matter what you choose, just know that you belong here, even if your path changes. You don't need a fixed career plan. To do economics, or in fact, any degree at university, all you need is curiosity, effort, and engagement. Thank you very much, and all the best for your application journey.